Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Thursday, June 4th, and I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Mr. Andrew Hansen, and we're celebrating. We have been hooting and hollering all day because we officially have our number one sport back. The NBA is back on July 31st, man.
Yeah, it's exciting. And we've been hooting and hollering here all day on the home front. So there's actually something that's as big, if not bigger. My daughter graduated from kindergarten today. So
Wow.
that's the number one excitement of the morning. And then in the afternoon, we get the formal announcement that the vote is passed, NBA coming back July 31st. So very exciting day for sure.
That's fantastic. And my daughter had a big article published in the paper today. I got to also give a shout out to my daughter too, Alyssa, because she is uh, just graduated from University of North Texas and was hired by NASA with aeronautical engineering degree. And she is building coolant systems for rockets so that they can stay in space longer. So I'm not sure where the smarts came from, but they're there.
They
So
are there.
thank
That's
God.
that's legit. Congratulations.
They definitely didn't come from this rockhead, that's for sure. But awesome, man. Yeah, it's good stuff. And now your daughter graduated kindergarten, so now there you go. She's got the engineering. She can follow in my daughter's
There
footsteps.
you
So
go.
very good. But anyway, before we jump into all this NBA talk, because it is pretty bizarre, it's got a lot to unfold and unpack and try to figure out exactly how it's all going to work. But it's back. That's all that matters. But uh, we are brought to you today by our sponsors, TVG, where the world goes to watch and wager on horse racing. Certainly sign up with them through DFS Coach Talk and $300 risk-free bet. I know I talk about this like every day now, but I can't believe you can bet $300 and if you lose it, they give it back to you. I think that's pretty darn cool.
That's a pretty
Uh,
good setup.
it is. And then our partners at BetUS as well. I know a bunch of people are jumping on golf and NASCAR and betting everything in the world. So you can also sign up with BetUS through our website. So we thank both of them. We're excited with their sponsorship and are looking forward to it. And speaking of that, we might as well mention now too, our memberships are perfect time to jump in. If you get even just a week membership, which is $25 a month, you are frozen. And the week doesn't start until either your dinglings in Major League Baseball come back, or at very worst, July 31st when the NBA comes back. It's so nice to have a date for once to
Yes.
say we got a date. But
Yes.
and then that's when the clock starts ticking on your membership, and you get our Discord and all of our pro picks and our FanDuel lineups and our DraftKings player pools, and we have a blast in there. We have one more day left in our Coach Talk Challenge 4, and it is a heck of a race. We've got like 4 guys that could still win it with just the one day left. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them, but me in sim contests. Don't get me started. I hate them, but I need the real deal. But yeah, definitely join us. Jump in. We'd love to have you. And we are one of the faster growing communities in the DFS space, so we're excited about it.
Don't forget
Uh,
about KBO, coach.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Big
Kate,
night last night.
that's right. Go ahead. Tell
Oh,
tell everybody, because I know for those that listened in and saw some lineups and stuff, it was a fun night.
yeah, we did our first KBO podcast earlier this week. And then last night, with the information we provided to our members, we had a top 1% lineup, easily cashing in the cash contest and right at the top for GPPs. So we'd love to have our new members take advantage of that. And that's what we're providing in our Discord.
And I'll tell you the separator there, and I got to mention it every time because it's a huge differentiator. Uh, we provide those lineups. Andrew and I put our brains together, and we're going to be doing 3 KBO shows a week, but 6 days a week because KBO takes off Mondays. we put our heads together and we put a FanDuel lineup together and a player pool in DraftKings. And that's what we've been, really getting hot with right now. And the difference, though, is here, crazy coach here, I get up 30 minutes before every lock. And it's usually here, I set my alarm for 3:50 a.m. most nights to get in there. Some nights they have a 1 a.m. and then it's a 4 a.m. So it shifts around a little bit, but the bottom line is every single slate for KBO, we're in our Discord 30 minutes before lock. And it made a whale of a difference last night because we had 2 scratches. And inevitably, we see people we're going against in these tournaments and, the cash contests and everything else that, leave a guy in there because, they sleep through it or don't get up. And, you take a 0 and that can pretty much crush a lineup. So, definitely jump in with us. The next 6, well, depending on baseball, we have to see what happens there. 6 to 7 weeks, whatever it may be. We're going to be just really building bankroll in KBO and PGA. And so that's going to be ecstatic. And we'll also be doing a Monday night podcast every Monday night for the NBA. So tonight we're doing this one on Thursday. We flip-flop with KBO because today was the vote to, ratify the new agreement that, how everything is going to go down with the NBA. So, yes, we love it. We love KBO. It's been a blast. And the big controversy now, so our listeners out there can help us figure this one out. I say CHOI is pronounced Choi. And my man Andrew, and I get it because they did say it on TV, but you have CHOI as...
Ch.
Go ahead, finish.
That's it.
That's it. It's just ch. Ch. Wouldn't that just be CH though? Ch.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
So anyway, maybe it's a Korean pronunciation thing, but anybody, tweet at us. I'm at Joe Sarvadi, by the way, JoeSarvadi. He is at Language Olympic, or you can just tweet us at DFS Coach Talk. But yeah, that's the $1 million question right now is CHOI pronounced Choi or Ch in Korean? So we may have to give out something free for whoever determines what that is.
Oh, please do send us that information if you have it, because we do our best to give the right pronunciations of every player we talk about, but it's hard to get that information on the KBO players. So we're all ears.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we got to get to basketball here, man. I cannot believe we're going to have basketball. This whole period of time has been so surreal. And the
85 days.
Wow.
Since the NBA shut down.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it was like yesterday on the couch, the Gobert thing. We're like, what's going on here? It's just surreal. But it's back. And, today we want to talk about what it's going to look like, how it's going to work, what the setup is going to be. I think we both have a pretty strong handle on that, and just sort of set all of the parameters. And then what we'll do on all these NBA Monday podcasts are start breaking down the teams and the matchups and so on. So a couple of things just to start off, and please jump in anytime, Andrew, here as well. But July 31st is the first set of games. They're all going to be played at Walt Disney World, that resort there. I've been there, by the way, at that sports complex there. It's really nice. And they're all going to be in that bubble until the season ends, which through the playoffs, the latest it can go, it's October 12th. Is that correct? Oh, hey, you could have a guest appearance. Does she want to say, can we congratulate her for graduating kindergarten?
No, we already did. That's fine.
Oh, okay. That's it. Hit the road.
What were you saying? October 12th?
Isn't that the latest they can play?
Yes.
Okay. So July 31st, even if the finals go to 7 games, then it ends October 12th. I do have something interesting for you. Did you see the Woj bomb that dropped this afternoon?
I mean, it's always bombs from him.
How about
Hard
this?
to distinguish.
They're talking about next season, opening night December 1st.
Yeah, I did see that.
So
And you
that
know what
means they'd
that
have like
means?
2 weeks off.
Yeah, they'd have like a month off before training camp started for the next season.
Well,
But
no, because if they go until October 12th and the
mhm,
first game is December 1st,
mhm.
oh, yeah, okay, that's like 6 weeks. You're right.
Yeah. So they start early November with training camp. Start December 1st, and you know what that means is potentially that would get everything finished next summer before the Olympics.
I know. I'm ecstatic. And maybe the NBA Summer League, we could go, maybe we can actually go there next July. Who knows?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh my gosh, it would be so wonderful. And that would be fantastic. So that is interesting. I just thought that was very surprising because I know everybody's been talking about them starting maybe on Christmas Day, but December 1st would be pretty interesting. Man, I'll tell you what, I know they've had a ton of time off, but if they're supposedly reporting to Orlando like July 14th. So if that's the case, really with July 14th, they play pretty much other than that month or 3 weeks or whatever off. If someone played this session, then started in December, went all the way through, and then played in the Olympics, they'd go pretty much 13 straight months without 3 or 4 weeks off. It's a lot of basketball.
That's a great point. It's weird how it's worked out. It's basically they had a season of what was it? October, November, December, January, February. Basically, what, 5 months they had a season and then no playoffs. So it's like everybody had a season which was 60 games, 65 games, and no playoffs. And then they get this huge big rest, and then they build up for, a season plus, like you're talking about. So,
Yeah.
because everybody talked about how LeBron, for example, benefited so much from missing the playoffs, getting the extra rest. But now everybody's getting a little bit of a taste of that with everything stopping 85 days ago. But yeah, it's gonna be tough on the back end next summer.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it doesn't affect guys wanting to play on the Olympics. But all that, I mean, that's far down the road. It's wonderful to have this to worry about. I mean, we took it for granted for so long that it was just going to be, we always talked about DFS Coach Talk, 12 months a year. We're at the summer league. We're doing the draft. We're, at preseason where we crushed it this year and, all year round. But then all of a sudden, when it's swept away from you like that, it's very interesting. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't assume there'd be any preseason games this following season either, really. I would, or maybe just two or something. But
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it was two or three max. Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, let's zone in on this. So they start July 31st. It's all in Orlando. They're going to test every day. They're going to keep everybody in that bubble. Hopefully, all of that works out. The decision was made that it would be 22 teams because what they did is everybody qualified that was 6 games or less out of the playoffs. So bizarre, but in the East, only the Wizards made it. And in the West, there were 5 teams that made it. So how bizarre is that?
And what's funny, Coach? If you look at the standings on ESPN.com,
Mhm.
all the teams now that aren't invited to Florida, they have an E next to them for eliminated. And
Ah,
this is the first time ever that teams have been eliminated just by a vote where they've decided for health reasons, etc. We're just going to go with 22 teams, and you guys who still had 15 games left, you're eliminated now. I mean,
yeah.
teams like Golden State were already mathematically eliminated, but for those other teams, it's a little bit strange that they're going to stay home while the rest of the NBA resumes.
I mean, I like Brian Windhorst. I think he's one of my favorites. I listen to his podcast, and they were saying, where do you cut it off? I mean, you can argue it if it's 16 or if it's 20 or it's 22 or there's somebody's going to be left out, and the way it works. And I think they put it best when they were saying, hey, it's a pandemic, this is all new, we're just trying to make it work. I know there are some young teams that really would have benefited from this extra run, like the Hornets and Bulls that just missed. So I know it's a hard pill for them to swallow. Atlanta Hawks, boy, if that would have been fun to see them play a little bit with Trey and Capella and the whole Collins and the whole group there.
And
but
Vince
it is
Carter.
what it is. Yeah. So you got the Bucks 1, Toronto 2, Boston 3, Miami 4, Indy 5, Philly 6, Brooklyn 7, Orlando 8, and Washington 9 as of right now. They are going to play, every team is going to play 8 regular season games, and then they're going to go into the playoffs. Now, the 8 regular season games, what they've done is they have any games that were left on the schedule where they were playing one of these 22 teams that are in, that stays on the schedule. What they do then is if you have games against like the Pistons or somebody that's been eliminated, then they're going to fill that in and try to keep strength of schedule as close to what it is right now. So, it should be close. I'm sure a few teams are going to get cheated out a little bit for playing better, a little tougher when they could have had an easier schedule with some of the teams that were eliminated, but they're going to try to make it as fair as possible. So the bottom line is, even though that's the order right now, that can shift around with those 8 regular season games. Now in the West, it's crazy. You got the Lakers 1, Clippers 2, Nuggets 3, Jazz 4, Thunder 5, Rockets 6, Mavs 7, Grizzlies 8, and then all these teams made it. They call it the Zion rule, I guess.
Right.
But Portland 9th, Pelicans 10th, Kings 11th, Spurs 12th, and the Phoenix Suns 13th. And they're all in. So 26 and 39, Phoenix does make it. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. After the 8 games are played by everybody, what they're going to do is they're going to take the 8 and 9 seed at that point, and the 8th seed and 9th seed will play each other. If the 8th seed wins that game, they remain the 8th seed and everybody else is eliminated. If the 9th seed wins that game, they have to play a second game. So then, it could get drawn out. If they split, then there's a final game from there. Isn't that the way you read it as well?
That's exactly.
And it makes it a little interesting, that's for sure.
Especially out west, because it's a 3.5 game gap, but Memphis has had a very tough schedule coming up. Teams like New Orleans had a very easy schedule, and that's one of the most interesting dynamics about all this. It's the thing that I like best is how you described what they're going to do with those 8 games in terms of keeping the games that were next on the schedule and then trying to balance out the strength of schedule and mirror it to what would have been. And, that's the key for a team like New Orleans, who had a real shot to track down Memphis if the rest of the schedule played out normally. But in this shortened schedule, you give them a chance to stay close or get a little closer and then be involved in that play-in game. So that's going to be one of the most exciting things to watch, is who gets that 9 seed out west with a chance to work their way into the playoffs.
It is. It's going to be so interesting, that's for sure. But, then once that's decided, though, it's going to feel like the real deal, other than the fact that they play on the same court all the time. But, so after that, it's 1 versus 8, just like always, 2 versus 7, and they play it out. I mean, the main thing with all this weird stuff that Silver did say is he wanted to legitimize the playoff structure itself. So that will remain the same, just like a regular season, except nobody travels. And, it makes it interesting. I know that, it's a devastating loss of home court advantages you work so hard to get, because when you play on a neutral court, that's taken away. But, there are positives as well. I mean, some of the the experienced teams, even a LeBron, I mean, you eliminate all the travel. I mean, you don't have to go back and forth to the cities, and that's a grind, man. I mean, I know how that works, and getting into hotels at 3:30 in the morning, and having to readjust, especially when you're going East Coast to West Coast and stuff like that. So I think some guys will love the fact that they play the game in game 3. Normally they'd have to go through all that rigmarole. They walk across the parking lot to the hotel and they sleep, and then they get ready for their next game. So that could benefit some guys, especially some of the vets. Not that they're not used to that, but every little bit counts when you get up there and you're trying to compete. You'll take that every advantage you can. So that's how that's going to work out. It's they'll come out with a schedule soon with those 8 games when they fill it all in. So we'll know what to expect. And man, it's going to be a DFS bonanza, though. I mean, every game's going to count. It's going to be important. When it's only 8 games, I mean, even somebody like Phoenix that has slim to none chance, they're going to come in there and play their tails off trying to, be a spoiler or, I think these guys feel like we do. I mean, you don't know what you have until it's taken away from you. And the fact that they're able to get out there and play again, I think is going to, I think they're just going to eat that up. I think it's going to be wonderful. Now, here's a couple of weird things I wanted to tell you too, because this cracked me up, man. So these are the things that didn't get through yet, but they're talking about trying to figure out how they can make it a little bit more of an advantage for the teams with better records. So
right.
These things are still on the table, and I think some of them are ludicrous. But one that's not on this list, though, that I heard was they talked about allowing teams to have their actual floor that they play on there and then have it assembled at the arena and play on their actual floor. But from what I heard, the logistics of that are just too difficult. But I did hear they may do that for the finals, which would make sense.
I think that'd be fun. Growing up in New England, you hear and know about the parquet floor in the Boston Garden and how some players, back in the day had to really adjust, and there'd be dead spots and cold spots and gaps in the floor. And It would be literally a home court advantage based on the court itself. But even just having the logo out there, the pattern that you're used to seeing, I like that as a way to give you some sort of a feel of a home court. And if we have to wait till the finals to get it, I'm fine with that. It would be kind of fun, though.
I think it would be. I think it's a good touch. But here are some of the things they're literally talking about. Like I said, some of them are ridiculous. The first one makes sense. The team with the better record gets possessions to start the second and fourth, which is a little more advantageous. I think that's a no-brainer. This is the funny one. They can designate one player from their team that's allowed to have 7 fouls instead of 6. So I don't see that happening. I just don't. Giannis was 7 or LeBron or these guys. I mean, it seems silly.
To me, anything where it's an actual competitive advantage, where you're talking about more possessions or more fouls, I don't think that's right. I think you got to throw that out the window.
I'm with you. They receive an extra coaches challenge. That's silly too, in my opinion. I don't think that'll roll. And then they said that they may play again, I heard this isn't going to fly though. They may have the actual hardwood for the team with the better record for the entire series, there, and then it would change out. But the logistics of that, and I mean, we're still technically in a pandemic, and there's all this civil unrest everywhere. Everything's going on. I think they just gotta be happy with just getting there and playing. So I'm hoping that's the case. Then this one cracked me up. The best record teams, they get the first pick of which hotel they stay in.
Yeah, I like that.
Isn't that hilarious?
That might be the one that ends up being what you get. And I did hear some commentary where it may be that some of the hotels are a little bit closer to the courts. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the advantage. The commuting time is just a little bit shorter, whether it's 10 minutes compared to 20 or 30. And so there you go. There's your reward for getting the higher seed.
Which means the Phoenix Suns will probably be at the Motel 6.
They'll probably be down in Miami. They'll have to travel a couple hours to get
Not
there.
that I'm against Motel 6. If you want to sponsor us out there, Motel 6. So, yeah, I think they'll iron out some of those little logistic things, but I doubt that many of those things will take place. But, it is what it is. There's no way to make it exactly right. There's no way to, it's just something that hopefully we'll never have to try to figure out or go through again. But, it's interesting. And I'm really excited for these Monday podcasts, Andrew, because as we start talking about some of these teams, I mean, there's so much to discuss and unwrap from an NBA and a DFS perspective, because, the question is, I can't wait for guys like the Joker. I mean, is he going to come back like he did at the beginning of the season at like 340 or something? Or, who knows?
I saw something on that. President of basketball operations for the Nuggets, Tim Connolly, came out and said that Jokic has abs now. He's beach ready. He's beach ready with abs. That's what he said.
I don't buy that for a minute.
Get ready for it. He's going to blow
crazy.
you away.
Jeez. Well, see, stuff like that is going to be huge, man. I mean, those are the things that are very interesting to see. Now, I remember when they published or had it on TV, the NBA 2K thing where they played each other. If you remember that, I talked about it on one podcast because DeAndre Ayton was playing against Zach LaVine in NBA 2K. And the conversation, you remember this, the conversation they had during the 2K thing was LaVine said, he has a gym built onto his apartment there. He's getting all his shots up. He's, in top, physical shape. And he asked Ayton what he was doing. And Ayton said, well, I'm doing a little lifting, but that's about it.
No cardio. No cardio for Ayton.
So who knows? Guys, seeing how guys are ready or what's going to happen is going to be a big part of it. So, we'll be scouting like a madman. That those 2 weeks, that they're in the actual, I guess you'd call it almost like a little bit of a training camp type of scenario there for the last 2 weeks of July. But, those will all be impactful things, because if you want to crush DFS, getting all of that stuff straight is going to be a huge key, because inevitably, let's face it, some guys are going to be shredded. Some guys are going to be fat. We're going to get everything across the board here. So
apparently James Harden has shed some weight too. He's been running up and down.
I can't believe the weight he lost. I can't. Believe it. I saw him. He's running sand hills up and down, and I've never seen him that thin. Even when he was at Arizona State, he's thinner than he was in college. So that'll be it. Now, that is all well and good, but you also have to remember he bulls his way to the basket on those drives, and he isn't going to have that extra 25 to throw at the guy. I've been wondering if that's going to hurt as much as it helps, Yeah,
he's slender, but I don't think he's frail. So I think he'll be fine when he drives.
I'll tell you, the picture I saw of him, if you look at the guy and you would say he is thin, and never have I said that about Harden. He's been physically fit, but a little thick, It's just his build. Right. But he's lost that. So it's, those are the kind of stories, though, that are going to be very impactful and make a big difference, because, people are going to go absolutely bonkers to play NBA DFS. So can you imagine the contests that first night back? I mean, they're all going to sell out. They're going to have huge contests, and having every sliver of advantage is going to be huge. There's no doubt about it.
I can't wait. And they may have exhibition games. They are still going to hammer out that schedule. I'm not sure if they'll be televised, but we're obviously going to be searching for every advantage we can with the eye test in that preseason of sorts. And then, that first game out, we're going to watch every minute with every team with the eye test to see who came back in good shape, to try to gain an edge for those next couple games. But the thing I really like about it, getting back to the whole structure, is that they've set it up to incentivize playing hard, playing well, and no tanking. Because what they did is they said, if you miss the playoffs, then your seeding, your odds for the lottery are based on where you were back when everything shut down 85 days ago. So a team like the Phoenix Suns, they can't just go in there and go 0-8 and say, oh, all of a sudden our winning percentage is lower than some team that was on the sidelines like the Charlotte Hornets.
Right.
And then get better odds in the lottery because they tanked at this point. So
yeah,
that's what I love about the way that they've set up the lottery rules for this year, is to make sure that everybody that goes to Orlando, they have an incentive to play hard and try to win.
I think it's great too. So right now the lottery's set. That's the point. They're not going to change it based on anything that happens there.
The lottery odds, correct.
The lottery odds are set. The three worst teams, I believe it's Cleveland, Minnesota, and Golden State, are all 14% to get the first pick. And then all of it will be structured down just like it was last year, with the way that they finished before the shutdown. So you're right. And I think that's a great point, because, it's going to be playing for pride and trying to win every game. There's no doubt about it. That's the other thing they discussed too, is they have to determine now where all of that's going to fall. The draft, I've heard possibly November draft is what they're, talking about right now. So there's all kinds of things yet to be, figured out. And all I know is my expectation is, I think they do start December 1 and get done in time to have a normal summer. The NBA draft, the summer league, the Olympics, all of that stuff. And that makes me ecstatic, because then it'll feel like it's getting back to the real thing again. So, I'm really excited for that. But, one other thing I wanted to mention, Andrew, and we talked a little bit before the show, I have a list here, and some of it is up to date, some of it's not. It does say June 4th updates, but I want to talk a little bit about, and we'll get into it when we go over the players, but the injuries, because here's the thing, it's out of sight, out of mind. There's a lot of guys that were down hurt that needed a month or 2 months or 2.5 months to get better. They're better, 100% ready to roll. And it's going to impact a lot of teams. The foremost team is the Nuggets. They get Zach Collins back from that bad shoulder injury. He's ready to go.
Yeah, Portland.
Or Portland. What did I say?
You said the Nuggets.
I'm sorry. Portland.
You're giving us nuggets of wisdom about Portland.
Nuggets about the Trailblazers. Correct.
There you go.
And so Zach Collins is back, and Nurkic is back. So now they've got a Whiteside, Nurkic, and Collins, 3 7-footers ready to roll. And if your man Jokic, that's the Nuggets. See, I crossed it back over. But as these guys, it's going to change for the Nuggets there with the big guys back. And there's a lot of teams, I think, that would have gone into the playoffs dinged up, that aren't going to be dinged up now. So that's very exciting. Just a couple of guys. I'll just go through this list real quick, and then we'll dive deeper into these certainly when we do these pods on Mondays. But Dorian Finney-Smith had a hip injury, and Seth Curry an ankle injury for the Mavericks, and we're looking to be out, maybe for the start of the playoffs. But now they're both 100% healthy. But Jalen Brunson and Dwight Powell are still out. For the long term. Let's see. The Indiana Pacers, Doug McDermott was dinged up some. He's obviously fine now. Jeremy Lamb's still not going to be back, though, torn ACL with his knee. He will continue to be out. Clippers, Lou Williams was dinged up pretty good. He was having a lot of problems with his calf and missed some games right before the shutdown. So obviously he'll be ready to rock and roll. It's hilarious because, of course, Anthony Davis is on this list. He was on
really?
every injury list. I don't know if they made it a joke of it or what, but they
What
put
does
him
it
on
say?
every.
Partially bruised thigh?
It says that it's his elbow, but that
What
he's
does he have?
ready to
He has
go.
tennis elbow?
I have no idea. It's hilarious though. But Alex Caruso had a injured hand at the time, and he's back. Um, Jimmy Butler was dinged up with his toe pretty good towards the end of the. If you remember, he missed a game and he sat minutes. So he's 100% healthy now. That's humongous for the Heat. What about Giannis? He missed games with his knee right before the shutdown. So this has allowed him to get back and ready to go. And I think he became a father during this period, I believe, of shutdown. I remember seeing some posts there. So that'll be interesting. For the Pelicans, a couple of guys, especially one that's very important. JJ Redick, they thought he wasn't going to make it back at all if they did make the playoffs, which they were, trying to get to, because he had a really bad hamstring injury, but I guess he's ready to go. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's not getting much time, is another guy that healed up. How about this guy? This Orlando's Jonathan Isaac. No one's, we just took for granted he wasn't going to be back. Didn't know he'd get another couple months here to rehab. So he's good to go. Kelly Oubre was out at the time that the shutdown happened with his knee, and Booker and Ayton were both dinged, a hip and an ankle. All those guys, even though they're somewhat hopelessly out of it, at least they're all back. So they'll get a good young experience run with all their young players as it goes. The Portland, like I mentioned, Nurkic and Collins are going to be back, which is, I mean, their depth inside is going to be really unmatched. Rodney Hood still out for the season. He tore his Achilles, if you remember. Other than that, let's see. DeJounte Murray and Lonnie Walker the fourth for the Spurs were hurt a little bit with a calf and lower leg, respectively. They're going to be 100% ready to roll. Here's a giant one. Fred VanVleet, if you remember, he was having on and off shoulder injuries like crazy. And Marc Gasol, his hamstring was really flaring up. He had missed, on and off games that last 2 weeks. Those two guys are going to be back and ready to rock and roll. So that'll help those guys. Bogdanovich from Utah, no dice, though. He is not going to be back. He's still out with the broken wrist. And he had surgery on that wrist, so he is not going to return, which is a big loss for Utah. I mean, people aren't, this stuff will all start coming up now, but he was a key player for those guys. And that's about it. I just wanted to give a little feel throughout, the league. A lot of big names there, though, and a lot of, shifting things that will happen with these teams and will have a major effect on DFS.
Yeah, one more team we got to mention is Brooklyn. And I'm still hearing the possibilities of Durant and Irving coming back. And that could really change the landscape in the East, because right now they're slotted in the 7 hole. And if everything stood pat, they would play Toronto. Toronto is 3 games up on Boston. And if the season had continued, Boston may have really pushed hard to try to get that number 2 seed to eventually have home court advantage against Toronto if they met up in the semifinals. But now I don't think Boston's going to be as motivated to push towards number 2 if that means they're going to end up playing Brooklyn with Durant and Irving possibly. So, we talked about how the teams who are out of the playoff picture right now, there's no incentive to tank. But within the 1 through 8 seeding, there could be some jockeying where teams rest a little bit because I'd rather play Philly or Indiana than Brooklyn if those 2 guys are back.
Well, based on what this says, and again, we don't know, and this is just the CBS Sports link that that I have here that I'm going through. But they're saying they don't think Irving and Durant are going to play. But, who knows? Who knows? I know, you know, Irving, I mean, didn't he have shoulder surgery? It was a bad shoulder injury. And, we know KD obviously with the Achilles, but it's been a long time. I mean,
Exactly.
it's been, uh, it's been a year now, right? It was the playoffs?
Yeah, it was the finals. So it was
So yeah,
late May, early June. It's been right about a
more,
year.
yeah. So when they're actually starting this up, which is basically August, I mean, that's guys come back from an Achilles in a year. Now,
Yep.
usually the first year back, it takes them a while to get going, but there are going to be so many stories to follow and figure out. It's going to be a blast. I just can't believe that they're back and ready to roll. It's just amazing. Just getting in the mindset, saying the names and talking about it. It's like, wow, this is going to be fun. So
Yeah, just seeing a couple highlights here and there in passing. It's just really exciting to picture the possibility of it actually coming back. It's a big boost for the country. And it'll be such a unique thing to be able to see these guys play in the summer in a unique setting with no fans. So hopefully, obviously, it'll go smoothly. Everybody will stay healthy, and we can crown a champion.
I can't wait to see it. I mean, it is so different watching a sport with no fans, though. I mean, just from some of the stuff that we've seen so far, it's odd because, that all that energy and all that excitement, it's pretty rough. And I would assume that's going to affect some teams too, because they feed off of that, like a Dame Lillard's the kind of guy that comes to my mind. He just feeds off that energy. So, a lot of guys are going to have to find that extra gear on their own somehow, I guess. So that'll be interesting. And then some of the coaching stuff with Atkinson getting booted from Brooklyn right before the shutdown. I mean, there's some, a little bit of coaching roulette. And I read again today that it looks like the Knicks Thibodeau's going to go to the Knicks, which is shocking to me too. I get it that Tibbs has a good reputation in that, but I mean, the guy plays his people 45 minutes a game and he's the same, and he can't get past anything, and he burns guys out. He does it. I mean, you see it all the time, from the D Roses on down. They show a lot of guys that played for him, and even at Minnesota, that he just, wore him into the ground. But I don't know why you would want Tibbs, who's not a player coach. I just, he and Dolan, I can't even imagine. They're going to come to fisticuffs probably. So who
Seriously.
knows? But all of those stories still have to, take place and everything too. But it's fun to be talking about. I mean, we're sitting here at June 4th, and literally on July 31st, we're going to have NBA action in a whole new way. And I'll tell you, I can't wait to see how the DFS world deals with all of it too, because I'll tell you, this is just something, we have a gigantic edge here. We hand build all our lineups. We look at all of these things, the coach talk, did the guy gain weight or lose weight? Is he in the coach's doghouse? All the different little elements that can take down a DFS slate. Whereas a lot of the other, our competitors out there are just throwing it all into an optimizer. Well, good luck trying to figure out how you're going to set up that optimizer when you have all of these completely unknowns. I mean, as soon as, the strength of an optimizer is the validity of it over a long period of time. There is no sample size for what's going to happen here. No home court advantage, no crowd, no on and on and on. So I think we're going to be smashing it, man.
It's a great point, Coach.
Yeah.
Most people who hype optimizers readily admit that at the beginning of the season, they don't have enough data to be optimal. So they need 15, 20 games or more to really kind of get rolling and hit their sweet spot. And you're right. If you just plug in data from February, March, that's a different season. It's going to be a whole new world. So I agree. Using that eye test in this 8-game, small sample is going to be a huge edge.
Well, not only do they want more of a sample size at the beginning of the seasons, but it goes beyond that. Some of them are pretty sharp. They know, especially this happens in baseball a lot. They know the slow starters, the guys that start off hot. There's all kinds of trends over years of statistical analysis that all go into a lot of that stuff. This is not a statistical analogy because it's never happened before like this. So to me, it just flaws the entire system of trying to figure out statistically what's going to happen. I would much rather build it by hand and sell out on the things that we're seeing. This guy's going to be a free agent. This team is in all the little pieces that we're going to consider. So, we really haven't talked about that yet off the air, but that's an exciting piece. I mean, I think it gives us a big edge going in. Now, baseball is going to be very similar in the sense that there's going to be a lot of unknown, different, because of the shorter season or no fans or depending on all of that stuff that happens. So I think there'll be a big edge there also. It's going to create, I think, an advantage that is really unmeasurable because there's so many different things to quantify.
We're licking our chops. Can't wait.
Can't wait, man. But that's it. We wanted to keep it a little bit shorter today. Just announced that it's official. They approved everything, how the format was going to work. And then we'll start dissecting these team by team, try to anticipate some of the matchups. Some of the teams are separated by 5 games. There's not going to be a whole lot of movement with some of those teams with just an eight games remaining. So we can start, looking at ahead and seeing what it's, going to play out to be. But a lot of money to be made. I think, there's going to be huge pools and giant contests and people not knowing exactly what they're going to do because it's a new system. So I'm excited, man. This is going to be great stuff. Again, we've got KBO. Our lineups are going to be going up. I've already put my FanDuel lineup up in our Discord. Andrew's going to be posting our player pool for DraftKings here shortly. So join in, catch these podcasts. They're always free in front of the paywall, so you can listen to us 7 days a week here. And then if you want to take it to the next level, jump on DFSCoachTalk.com or look us up at DFS Coach Talk on Twitter and jump in, check it out. Memberships are frozen till baseball, or at very worst, the NBA on July 31st starts. And then we go gangbusters from there, buddy.
You said it, yeah. So from now until when sports start, you get our free lineups and player pools for KBO and free player advice on golf starting next week.
I know. I'm pumped for golf. I really am. I wish I could go watch it. I've gone to that tournament multiple times, but no fans, so you can't watch it. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. We're somehow, some way going to get back to normal, get through all of this stuff. And I think everybody's going to appreciate things a lot more. That's for darn sure. I want to thank our sponsors, TVG, certainly the place to go for all of your horse racing wagers and watching. Definitely go to DFS Coach Talk to get that $300 risk-free bet. BetUS also want to thank them. They're going to be seeing a huge uptick as these sports come back in action as well. So appreciate those guys, and we're just going to get after it. We're going to get after it, man. Any closing thoughts?
Nope. Let's have a big night in KBO tonight, and thank you all for joining us.
Awesome. And I hope all the basketball fans are listening. Definitely, if you're all NBA, every Monday, the rest of the way until basketball starts, tune in because you're going to get ourselves in position to build lineups. I mean, we're going to be right down to it. So Fantastic. Well, thank you everybody for listening. Join us again tomorrow. We're 7-day-a-week podcasts. And, for my main man, Andrew Hansen, I am Coach. We'll look at you tomorrow when we look to crush it again in DFS.